Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, crime, poetry and horror. It's my weekly wrap-up. So I wanted to start today by just welcoming new viewers to the channel. I've had a video about the novel Notice by Heather Lewis, which has performed far better than any video I've ever made, and has gained me a ton of new subscribers. So if you're one of those new people, welcome. Thank you very much for checking back in. And if you're a long-term subscriber, hello, thanks for sticking with me. So the format for today's video will be, as usual for a Saturday video, I'll talk about the books I've read, I'll talk about what I'm reading at the moment, what I think I'm going to be reading next, and I'll also just talk about what's been happening on the channel in the last week. So let's crack on with what I've been reading. So first up, something very different from the kind of things I normally read, and that was Fever Pitch by Nick Hornby, which you may or may not know, but it was a very successful book when it came out. And it's a non-fiction memoir of a football fan, so a soccer fan, talking about really his experiences of supporting the team he supports, Arsenal, over a number of decades, so from his childhood up to kind of early middle age. So this is a book that was recommended to me by one of my subscribers, DDB. So we've been having a chat in the comments about the fact I don't read an awful lot of non-fiction, and DDB is really into non-fiction and particularly really into sports books. Now I have no interest in sport at all. So I said to him, okay, recommend me a sports book and I'll read it. And he recommended Fever Pitch, which was at least a book I'd heard of. And I remembered people when I was at university reading it and enjoying it. So anyway, I gave it a read, and it's a very well written book. It's quite engaging. It's quite funny at times. It's quite moving at times. And Nick Hornby does a really good job of kind of describing obsession. So he is, by his own admission, an obsessive fan of Arsenal. And it's often an experience he doesn't particularly enjoy, but he feels compelled to do it. So from that perspective, it was a good book. But at the end of the day, it is about football, which I have absolutely no interest in. So that definitely knocked my enjoyment of it a bit. But I'm glad I read it. I enjoyed quite a lot of it. I just didn't enjoy it unreservedly, shall we say. So moving on to more typical stuff. So first up, Hellhouse by Richard Matheson. So the great Richard Matheson, who's an excellent author whose books, the books of his I've read, I've really, really enjoyed up until this one. So big fan of I Am Legend, and also a big fan of his book The Shrinking Man. So this was the October pick for the Berthier Book Tag Book Club. So if you don't know what that is, I created a while ago a book tag where people talk about their favourite books that came out in their birth year. And a few of us have been reading through that list of favourite books gradually. So this was this month's pick. And I have to say, I didn't enjoy it at all. And I can't explain why. I expected to really like this book going into it. I was really looking forward to reading it. But for some reason, it just didn't engage me in the slightest. So it's about a small group of people who go to kind of stay in a haunted house to study it, basically. So kind of a similar setup to Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. But this is much more extreme in terms of some of the content in it. But yeah, I just didn't buy into the story. I didn't engage with any of the characters. And I found myself just wishing the book was over, to be honest with you, which really surprised me because, as I say, I've really enjoyed Richard Matheson's other books that I've read. So yeah, that was disappointing for me. Next up, a couple of kind of very standard things for the channel. So I'm reading through kind of 4 pulpy series. So I read books from 2 of those this week. So the first one was Panic in Philly, which is the 15th book in the Executioner series by Don Pendleton. So this is a series of books about a kind of loner, Mac Bolan, going up against the mafia who've killed members of his family. And gradually, in these early books, gradually working his way through the cities of America and taking down the mafia in those cities. So in this one, he's in Philadelphia. It was very standard for one of these Matt Bolan books. It was entertaining, but not fantastic. It has the normal kind of mix of gunfights and deception and things like that. So a fun read, but not a standout one in the series. And then similarly, reading through this series, the Edge series by George G. Gilman. which is a British Western series from the 70s. So this is book 16 in that series, The Final Shot. And like the Mac Bolan book, this was entertaining but not brilliant. So some of these books, and this is one of them, kind of flip-flop between kind of contemporary Western setting and the American Civil War, where Edge, the central character, was a soldier in the Yankee Army, the Union Army. So it's about it's about kind of the end of the Civil War, this one, as well as stuff that's happening to Edge, post Civil War. Brutally violent at times, quite entertaining, quite objectionable at times in terms of the way some characters are portrayed, but still, quite an entertaining read. Okay, a bit of crime. So this is what I was reading last week when I did my weekly wrap-up, A Raging Harlem by Chester Himes, which is a really enjoyable crime novel set in Harlem in the 50s, and indeed written in the 50s. So the first in the nine-book Harlem cycle that Chester Himes wrote. So about basically a con gone wrong. So starts out almost the first quarter of it, I think, is about this guy who's very obviously getting conned and doesn't realise it, and the book kind of progresses from there with him and his brother trying to undo the con, if you like. So quite a complex plot, for some fantastic characters, wonderful sense of place. I really, really enjoyed it a lot. And then finally, something completely different for me, a book of poetry. So I've talked on the channel before about the fact that I don't like poetry, and I say that as someone who has not really read much poetry, so it's one of those kind of slightly stupid statements, probably. So I read this book anyway, Hey Bert by Roberto Pastore, who is, you may know, if you're a BookTube fan, as Bert from the channel Pastore Time. This was just a really lovely book. I really, really enjoyed it. I wasn't sure what to expect going in because, as I say, I'm not really a big poetry reader, but there's a variety of different poems in here. The style of them is consistent pretty much throughout the book. Lots of use of kind of repetition for effect and things like that. But they work beautifully. Some of them were kind of sweet and funny. Some of them were sad. Some of them were joyful. I really went through a range of emotions reading this book, and it made me think that maybe actually I do like poetry after all. Don't worry, I'm not going to start doing like poetry readings or anything like that on the channel. Definitely not. But I did enjoy this book. So, Bert, thank you very much for writing it. I really, really liked it. I did pick up this book, The Butcher by Laura Cat Young, and read the first few pages of it, but I just wasn't in the right mood for it for some reason, so I'm putting that one back in the pile, and I will probably try that again later this month. So what I have picked up, and I am enjoying, is Lost Horizon by James Hilton, which is a 30s kind of adventure novel about some people in some kind of English and American people in the Far East who get their plane gets hijacked basically, and they land in Shangri-La, and I think it's supposed to be the first novel that kind of discusses the concept of Shangri-La. So this is a pick for NJ from Reading This Life. She runs a book group, so this is this month's pick for that. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. It's definitely of its time and quite racist at points, but as a story, I'm enjoying it so far. So we'll see how I get on with that. After that, I'm not really sure. I've still got a few things on my TBR pile here. I think I'm probably going to read book 8 in the Survivalist series, and what is this, book 9 in the Gore series. So I think I'm probably going to give both of those a go this weekend. I'll probably read the Survivalist when I finish Lost Horizon, and then I think after that probably I will be reading Farewell My Lovely by Raymond Chandler from this Library of America volume. So gradually working my way through Chandler's books, and that's the one that's up next. So, and then after that we shall see. I've had a ton of new books coming recently, including I've lost it now. Including Poking Holes by Juan Valencia, one of the Played by Visions channel. And whilst this isn't on my official TBR for the month, I'm pretty sure I'm going to read it this month because I'm really looking forward to this. So I may well pick that up this weekend. It's a short story collection. So I will probably try at least one of the stories in that. Okay, so in terms of channel stuff, over the last week or so, I've done a book haul video where I talked about some of the disturbing books I've picked up recently, as well as some crime books from the 70s. I did the Fear the Booktuber tag, which was quite a fun one, kind of a horror-themed book tag. In terms of reviews, I've done a review of Shiver by Junji Ito. So that's the first Junji Ito book I've read, and I really enjoyed that. And also the Iliad by Homer. So I'm gradually working my way through a bunch of classics, and that was the one I read this month. And then I did a top 10 video, so 10 of the best horror novels you've never heard of, which people seem to be quite enjoying. And I think, by and large, I've managed to live up to the title in that most people seem to have not heard of most of the books. And my Sunday Bollocks video for Sunday Just Gone was about why I read disturbing fiction, which again people seem to have been quite engaged by, so I had some really good comments on that. In the week ahead, tag wise, so on Tuesday I'm going to do, I think, the Book Snack tag. I'm about to film an unboxing video for the Abominable Book Club horror subscription box, so that will go up probably on Monday. And then I think I'm going to do a kind of double header review of A Raging Harlem and Inner City Hoodlum by Donald Goines. So kind of a comparison of those two books, because there are a lot of similarities between them. So that's some of the stuff that will be up on the channel in the next week. I'll try and get something up every day. I am suffering with a bit of a cold at the moment, as you may be able to hear, so we'll see how I get on, but my intention is definitely to get something up every day. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. So today I've got this rather nice 70s edition of A Pocket Full of Rye by Agatha Christie for you. So this is one of the Miss Marple books. I've got a ton of Agatha Christie books, some of which I've read, some I haven't. This one I have read and it was a lot of fun. So I really like Agatha Christie. It's just a kind of easy, cosy mystery kind of book. I think she was fantastic in what she did, and deservedly very famous. And I do love these 70s editions as well. They've got really creepy covers, which I do really enjoy. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Do let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. Do let me know what you've been reading this week. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.